Cool. All right. So what I did is I went and recorded a squeaky metal wheel that I found in a car park. So I quickly popped it inside and gave it a bit of a record because I thought it might be useful for this machine here. So as we can see, I shoot this guy. And it spins round and round and round, and it looks like it's sort of steampunk and made of metal. So I thought, well, it should be, as it rotates, it's probably going to squeak a bit. So I thought, okay, well, there's a squeaky wheel sound, and let's have a listen to that in all its glory. So in the last video, when we were looping, I was talking about how if you are looping things, you don't want to have too many distinguishing features. So if I just did, say, these three, like this. Not just the timbre that gives it away, but also the regularity of where they turn up. So the more of them you can have, the less noticeable that repeat will become. Yep. So not too bad as far as the loop goes. I might just trim this in a little bit. I don't want to listen through the whole thing just to hear that, but I can always play with it later. So the point being that I've got all these things here. I don't necessarily need to loop them all the way through because the machine turns on and off, but I've got this longer repeat here. Now you might think to yourself, well, that's going to fit over all of these bits anyway. I'll just put it temporarily on the shotgun load track. You might think that this is more than enough time, but if you look at this machine as it rotates, and maybe if we listen to that at the same time, it's moving much quicker. And I couldn't spin the wheels of the trolley fast enough consistently to get that sound. And of course, I wasn't looking at it to picture at the time because it was one of those things where I just found this thing and recorded it straight away. So what I can do is, again, we've introduced you to the time compression expansion tool. This time I'm going to compress time, so I'm going to make it happen shorter so these things are faster, but I don't want to change the pitch. And I'm just going to check in my preferences under processing. Aha, this time I don't want to use the older one, I want to use the better sounding algorithm. So I'm just going to use the X form, and it's going to take a little bit of trial and error. One tip I would say with this is do the time compression once. So if I just go here and time compress it, still a little slow. Don't just make it shorter again because you're sort of doubling down on the compression. So every time you do it, the quality might be getting worse. Go back, undo to the original file, and then time compress it again. So let's see where this one goes. I can kind of believe that. Might just see if I can go a little bit more in time. Let's try this one. And it is a little bit of trial and error, this sort of thing. I think that one works. And what I was doing is I was looking at the flag rotating, like one flag rotation when it comes back around, and that's where the squeak is, rather than it sort of squeaking for every flag. It depends on how important the sound is as well. So if you think to yourself, well, this sound is going to be something that a person focuses on, it's going to be a staple sound in the sound design, you might want to spend a little bit more time figuring out exactly how that works out. If it's a sort of background sound, and if we put it into context of everything else going on, it's important here. Yeah, I think that works. Now I run out, so I'm just going to use the, once I've done that, it's a good idea to return it back to standard, by the way, once you've finished doing time compression expansion trim, because it can lead you into all sorts of problems. So with this, I'm just going to duplicate it, and let's see how it loops. Looks like it's going to be bad. So what I'll do is I've got a sound here. I'm just going to tab to transients up to it. Just tab up to that squeak there and use control grabber tool to jump it back. And that way I keep the rhythm of the audio file going. And what I could do also is choose a different I'll go to shuffle mode, choose a different squeak. See where there's a little squeak, squeak, squeak in that one? I only need it, I think, when we get to here, if I go along and nudge my way across, notice in the background that the flags have stopped moving here. So my last, see it goes red and it's moving. Flap, 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 flap. As the flags roll around, slows down here when the light goes out. So I was a little bit off, although I probably want to fade it a little bit. So I'm just going to cut that one. Oh, not available in shuffle mode. Go back to slip. Cut that one and just put a little fade on it. And a little crossfade here as well won't hurt, just in case there's a clip. And let's just put a little fade on the start too. So now that I've got that, the machine rotate, in you go, and let's have a look at it in context. So we can see in this section it's rotating away happily in the background. So I've obviously cut out the shot where I shot it and started it in motion. There it goes, running its way through. I notice the shark's not moving though, so it's probably about to stop. And it's moving again once I get to this point. So here it's not, it's uncertain whether it's moving because it's hidden behind. Actually, we can see that it's already stopped here behind Jun's head, and it's not going with the explosion either. So if we take a little bit of care, we can see it's just winding down there, and that might be where it stops right there. So I'm just going to cut that clip groove off. I was obviously in a hurry. And now I can just take maybe a different section. Where's my machine rotate? So this is my X-form machine rotate, the whole thing. I'm just going to copy that and again run it up into here. I don't need the whole thing this time. I'll just trim it back down. See how that looks.
Disgusting!
So if I want to, I could start it on a different squeak. So maybe I just have it running here. Delete that. I've copied that so it's on my list up here. Do the same thing again, maybe just find a different. There is a squeak there, so I'll just go Command E, line it up to that. Looks pretty solid, but let's find out the as you can see right at the end there, it's rotating around into black. So I'll just leave that one go.
Suicide it down!
It's definitely running strong in there. So I will pop it in that. You get the idea. And I might as well put all of these onto here and just go across and hit F for fade, and that's just going to put a tiny little fade on the start and end of every clip. There's one. I've zoomed in quite a lot, but it's probably quite small. It's less than a millisecond. In fact, it's less than a frame. That's one frame. It's a very, very small fade. Just in case I get clicks. It's worthwhile just going through with all your files and either customizing your fades or doing them one at a time. Or batch fading them like that and just putting a tiny one on there to stop clicks. Depends on whether you want things to move around or to click. I'm going to be automating the sound of this machine for a bit. So as you can see, I've only got these two sections now to do. Which I'm pretty happy about. I'm just going to chuck one, paste it right there. I haven't used the original sound for a while, so I'll just chuck that onto that. Actually, I won't do that. I will run the cursor, so I want the end of this to be that cursor. So I'm going to use Control Command grab a tool to run the end up to that cursor.
Destroy the tower. You'll need enough to destroy the tower. Enough to destroy the tower.
So it's right on that shot that it has to start squeaking. It might not have a squeak on the first turn though.
Destroy the tower. You'll need at least one more charge. Find another generator.
And then this one, I can throw my thing on and do the same trick again. So where I duplicate it, find a random squeak, cut off the start and make that squeak happen there to fit all the way through. And I'll do the same again because it goes a bit longer. Just duplicate this one this time. Tab up to the next squeak it's got, which I think is probably there. Basically run it back this way. And by the time it gets to there, I don't think we see it again. So I'm just going to have that last squeak cut off. Put a bit of fade on there. Actually, why don't I do my batch fade? It's good to do your batch fades first. Put those little wee fades in between all these things, and then do a proper fade of where you want things to start happening. Hopefully that was useful to you.